In the first part of this demo, I want to focus on the Smoke's UI and workflow and really emphasize that Smoke has all the typical editorial tools and workflows that you are accustomed to using in other applications. And then we'll start digging into the deeper tool set that Smoke offers you. Looking at the Smoke UI, it is broken down into 3 sections in this default layout. Along the left-hand side, I have my Autodesk library, where I have storage areas such as source areas, record areas, and folders. Think of these as bins coming from other applications. The green areas are called source areas. These are where I can store my different clips and view them on my desktop area, which you see right over here, the main part in the upper region of the UI. We also have these red areas, which are called record areas. This is where I store my timelines. And then we also have the blue bins, or folders if you will, because that's what they are in Smoke. They are folders, and each folder can be used to compartmentalize and organize your different projects as you work. So you'll notice that I have multiple different folders, and as I expand each one of them, you can see that I have different source area and record areas for each demonstration I'm going to walk you through. As I switch and click to view different source areas, you'll notice my desktop now changes to show me the different clips that have been saved inside that individual source area or bin. This lower region is called the record area, and this is where we will have our timelines. And what's great about Smoke is that you can view your timeline in several different ways. Right now I am looking at what's called the storyboard. Up here inside of my source area, I'm looking at what's called the thumbnail view. So that's why we see these different thumbnails of all the different footage and sources that I have. Let me also mention that the footage that we're using was actually from a tutorial created by digital tutors focusing on creating motion graphic elements in 3ds Max, and that 3ds Max tutorial is actually available for free at the Autodesk website. And these are the rendered files that came out of 3ds Max, and we now, as the editor, need to edit and composite them together. You'll notice that each thumbnail can be played back individually, or if I want to step into a player, I can play each clip individually, or I can go to a full screen viewer to see the full resolution of the clip and play that back. Let me go back to our desktop. To start adding our clips into the timeline area, the record area along the bottom, it's as simple as dragging and dropping our clips. Now I can continue to do so, and I'm editing these clips together right down here inside of our record area. In the storyboard view, we see the head of each one of these clips as they've now been edited together. We can continue to edit further by taking other clips such as this soccer player. I can drag and drop it into my timeline. It is now added in between these clips. As I said earlier, you can view your record area, your timeline, in many different ways. Right now I'm looking at the storyboard. If I click on the flyout, you can see all the different options as to how I want to look at my actual timeline. I'll choose the record timeline, and now you'll see that we have a current time indicator, and the clips are represented in a traditional timeline that you would see in another editor. I now have the output of my record area represented inside of this thumbnail with the red outline. To view the standard player of the timeline, I can just tap to the either left or right side of my UI, and I switch to view the standard player. Just like the record area, I have a flyout that allows me to choose what type of layout I want to look at my clips, whether it's going to be in a standard player, thumbnails, or a source record mode. And I'll choose that. And now we have our typical source player on the left and our record, our timeline, on the right. And if I expand my source area over here inside of my Autodesk library, as I select each clip, you'll see that the source area is going to change to show me that individual clip. Also now, in between my source and my record area, you'll see several different editing tools that you are familiar with already from other editing programs. These allow us to start incorporating and adding more clips into our timeline. For example, if I scroll over to the soccer player right before he kicks this ball, you'll notice that the ball is missing from the footage. But if I come over to my source area in my Autodesk library, I can select that clip. I can use the source area player to set in and out points, play back the source clip, or position the current frame of the source clip to be at the frame that I want to have it edited according to the position timer inside my timeline. So I'll add another layer into my timeline, and then I'll come over here to my tools and choose Align Edit. You'll notice now the clip that was in the source area has now been added to the new layer in my timeline, and the current frame that I had it set at is now aligned to the current time indicator inside the timeline. This clip comes into the timeline without a mat, so what I can do is use any one of the different tools or soft effects that we can apply to each individual clip in the timeline. I'll turn on the axis effect, which now applies that effect to this clip, and then I'll click the matte button that allows me to choose the alpha or matte information that I want associated with this clip. Now as I scrub the playback, we can see that the soccer ball has the matte applied to it, and it is aligned properly with the original footage inside the timeline. In my Autodesk library, I'll select another clip named the sparks, and as I scrub this, you can see we have this spark effect that we want to add to the point where the soccer ball is being kicked. So once again, I position the cursor to where I want this to take effect, and I'll add another layer down in my timeline, and then I'll just choose insert. And now you can see the sparks are taking place at the exact moment that I wanted based on my editorial tools. As we scrub forward, we can see that the ball is lasting longer than I really want it to be. So what I can do is go back to the frame where I want to create my cut and just create my cut and throw away the clip I do not want anymore. Now if I return to view the top level of my timeline and I scrub through, we've got our soccer ball being kicked, the sparks take place, and then it goes on to the next clip. But as I scrub forward, notice that the ball in the next clip is not in frame at the edit point, and that's really what I want it to be. So I can go back to the edit point and just create a ripple effect to where the ball is in the frame as I want. Now as I scrub forward, you can see the ball comes to the frame from the original shot, which then follows into the next clip exactly as I want it. Going to the edit over here in the end, I want to do the same thing. I want to create a dissolve. It's as simple as coming in and adding some heads and tails to our clips, and then once I have an edit point set to where I want it to be, and then when I'm at the edit point, you'll notice that the soft effects that were along the left-hand side have disappeared. Now I have different transition tools that I can apply to my edits, such as a dissolve. With the dissolve selected, I can increase or decrease the length of the dissolve as I want and play back the clip. I want to perform one more edit here, and that is I want to create a white flash taking place from this cut where the ball goes out of the frame into the graphic for the soccer logo. So to do that, we're going to create a white flash on our desktop. I'll swipe over to the left or right side to return to the desktop. Now I don't currently have a white flash clip, but what's great about working in Smoke is that we can very easily create it. I'll disable my editing tool so that I can see all of my different desktop tools that are available to me here inside of Smoke. Notice that there's different categories, and as I switch between the different categories, different tools now become available to me. If I click the color source tool, to set the duration for my color source to be 10 frames and make sure the color is set to white, I click once in the desktop, and now I have a 10 frame white source that I can now bring back into my timeline. So I tap over to the left hand side once again to return to my source record layout, and in my timeline I now can go and insert this white clip. To animate and keyframe the transparency of this white flash, I will add an axis effect which offers me the transparency setting that I can now set and create keyframes. I'll go to its last frame and set a value of 100, so now I've keyframed the flash over time. I'll set my player to be a standard player once again, and as I scrub through and play my clip, you can see that I've done all the basic editorial work that you typically do, such as dissolves, multi-layer compositing, adding alpha information, and so on. So this is a great example of how Smoke is an editor at heart, and you can see that you have all the tools that you already are familiar with inside of other editing programs here inside of Smoke.